My grandfather was a very kind physician, and he was my role model. And my father was a man who believed in community service, and he always told me that this is why you go to medicine, is to do community service, and you don't forget that. When I got married and was coming to United States, he says, well, there's no community service to be done there. He thought you didn't need community service. Everybody's wealthy there.
Dr. Big saw a number of people who had lost their jobs and lost their health insurance and had a lot of difficulty actually accessing health care.
I realized that in my practice, a lot of people were losing their insurance and as a result would discontinue a medical follow-up and would end up with complicated problems.
She opened 2 free clinics to provide health care to the uninsured. She has a full-time medical practice, yet she devotes a very large amount of time to ensure the success of the clinic, and the clinics have really grown a lot in their numbers.
The clinic was established in 2010, and we see about 1,000 patients a year.
She's very compassionate in her interactions with her patients, and this goes beyond just providing medical care. It's really trying to understand what barriers there might be to health care because of their life circumstances.
There is no access to mental health for people who have no insurance. What is unique about the clinic in West County is they have psychiatrists who provide services to the uninsured at no charge. The clinic at Lake St. Louis is Crossroads Clinic, and it serves counties all the way from Lake St. Louis up to Montgomery City. That is the only clinic that serves the needs of the uninsured between all these counties.
In 2015, Crossroads Clinic had 979 visits. 153 of those were new patients, and that number continues to grow. Dr. Big works tirelessly to support the clinic, recruiting other volunteer providers by finding specialists for referrals, soliciting donations and also services for the clinic. And this is all in addition to a full-time medical practice, which I think is amazing.
It's a very rewarding experience and enriching experience. It makes me realize why I went to the medical school in the first place. It's a small way to give back to the community. We are so blessed to have the best dedicated volunteers at both the clinics who work day and night diligently to make this a possibility.
She emphasizes repeatedly that the clinic is a team effort, and of course it is, but she's the leader.
It is very contagious to be there and see how people give off of themselves and are so kind to the patients.
These clinics would not exist without Dr. Big, and it's because of Dr. Big that thousands of patients have received life-changing medical care.
It has overall been the most rewarding experience of my life.
One of my philosophies is you can't do everything all at once. So put your toe in the water and just take a first step.
It's very difficult to say no to Carol. That if Carol asks you to do something and you want to say, no, I don't have enough time, and you look at everything that she does, I think somehow or another you probably have enough time.
When I was still working before I retired, there was a United Way speaker who started talking about CASA, court-appointed special advocates. They're trained volunteers who advocate for children who've been abused or neglected, and they're now wards of the state. So that was my first start of what I will call intentional volunteering. The CASA is the one who is totally focused on the best interest of the child, getting them a safe and permanent home, and also finding ways that they can best reach their full potential. Some of the things you see are heartbreaking. Standing before the judge, I always felt was a very heavy responsibility. There's nothing quite like that moment when the judge says, is there a CASA present? And he's got your report in his hand, and he asks you to stand up. At that moment, you realize that what you say could potentially impact the rest of this child's life.
She has just done a variety of work, but the most recent was that she created something called Community Meals.
Community Meals is a way to address hunger, but it addresses so much more. We serve restaurant style Monday night at our church in the fellowship hall and open the doors to anyone who enters.
Every community has homeless, and there are also a lot of people that use the food pantry that need extra help.
We want to have the best experience for our guests as possible. and we want them to be able to come in, relax, be served with full respect. There are no questions, no requirements. There's no attempt to convert anybody. It's just come and have a meal.
We put out signs every week. And there have been people that have been driving by and see the sign and have stopped and say, can we help? So it hasn't only been getting the church involved, it's been getting people in the community involved.
We've served about 6,700 meals to date and are still going. You never know what's going to happen on a given Monday night, but it's always meaningful.
One guy last night said, it is so nice. He said, I get a good meal. I don't have to do dishes. And there are all these people to talk to. And it's the compassion for people. It's just a marvelous, marvelous gift.
I see people dealing with extraordinary circumstances, hardships, and yet they keep on going, putting one foot in front of the other day after day after day. And they are so hopeful and joyful and so willing to lend a hand to someone else. To me, that is very inspiring. There are certain times in your life when you just know you've done something right.
You never know whose life you will touch and how ordinary people become special people.
I started working with Ronnie 5 years ago at the Camp Rainbow Foundation, but I actually met her back in 2001 when my daughter was a camper for the first time. Camp Rainbow is for children being treated for or survivors of cancer and blood-related diseases and disorders. They live an adult life. They've been thrown in an adult situation, and it gives them a chance to just be a kid.
In 1988, we opened our doors.
There were 27 campers, and at the end of the week, they knew they created magic.
We just had all these wonderful people who were willing to give of their time, their energy, their money to help Camp Rainbow grow.
She kept saying, I want to do more, I want to do more. And since they started camp, we have served over 5,000 campers. It's made my family who they are. You know, when you have a child that's diagnosed with a serious illness, the last thing you want is for them to be out of your sight. And she really gave me a sense that they had put together everything possible to make it a fun and safe environment.
I think one of the other things that affected us, and me in particular, was the gratefulness of good health.
When my daughter came home and told me about camp, it was the first time she ever talked about her illness. I remember her saying to me, Mom, I'm special. She goes, but guess what? Everybody at Camp Rainbow is special. Nobody cares if you have hair, nobody cares if you have scars, nobody cares if you can run, kick a ball, not kick a ball. But they make sure we all have fun, and they kept reminding us how special all of us are. And I want to go back next year.
I'm in a cabin every year with the kids, and I hear this one little girl talking to this other little girl. She goes, I have cancer. And the other little girl says, well, so do I. And they're getting in their pajamas and everything, and she goes, oh my gosh, I have a port. And the other little girl goes, look, so do I. And they say to each other, well, this is the greatest place because I get to be with people who are just like me. That's what camp's all about. I feel blessed being able to have the opportunity to not only provide a place, a happy place for children, but a place where teenagers learn how to be a leader, how to be responsible, where adults learn how to put themselves out there and not be afraid to work with children. Many years ago, we started a quilt project where every camper comes to the art tent and they have to do a self-portrait. When we hold it up and you look at those quilts, every single face is smiling. What better gift can somebody have than have the gift of a smile of a child?
I think sometimes our work finds us, defines us, and you just sort of get the feeling that this is what I'm supposed to do.
My mom started volunteering at Greenwood Cemetery in the late 80s, early 90s.
Greenwood Cemetery is the oldest commercial African American cemetery in this entire area. It opened in 1874. It captured a great deal of African American St. Louis history right around the turn of the century.
She was looking for who I call Aunt Sally, who died in 1977, and walked in and couldn't find it. It was all overgrown. We couldn't find her.
It was important to me because my great-grandmother was probably the most influential person in my life. It was very distressing to get there and not to be able to find a gravesite because of the condition of the cemetery. It was like a piece of my family had literally just been taken away from me.
My mom just kept working and working and working until she found Aunt Sally, and then she kept working and working and working until she found other people's families, until she found folk legends and until she found blues singers and civil rights activists. She kept working and she kept uncovering this amazing history in St. Louis.
There was so much history there. It wasn't just my great-grandmother. It was a lot of great-grandmothers. They were telling a story about how they progressed, some of them from slavery into being free people. For example, the story of Harriet Robinson Scott, Dred Scott's wife.
Stagger Lee, blues singers, musicians. I mean, there's just so much history that people don't really know about our culture, our city.
I was so naive. Not only did we find the physical problems of a piece of property that had just gone way beyond anything manageable, we also ran into legal problems.
I thought she was kind of crazy because I got to tell you, the weeds are over your head and it's daunting. But she wasn't afraid of anything. She kept digging through.
We're at the point now that not only is it an established piece of property, it's on the National Register of Historic Places. We've been able to restore burial records. We've been able to establish a body of obituaries. We're in the process of taking headstone pictures. So, what we're doing is establishing a national body of work.
She has been able to galvanize thousands and thousands and thousands of volunteers over the years.
We have had such a cross-section of people in St. Louis to come out and help. Is it that we just simply need to connect to each other and we're just beginning to understand that? Some days I don't understand it either. Greenwood tells a story of St. Louis, a fascinating story of St. Louis.
I am a volunteer at heart. If you cut me up, I'd bleed volunteerism. It's something I've done all my life. I'm the executive director of an organization called Maturity and Its Muse. Our mission statement is to promote positive and productive aging through the arts.
I think of this organization as like the holding company for so many things Lynn. She's used this and the relationships that she's built up to really spawn all kinds of new arts and community programmings that come out of Maturity and Its Muse.
I was really wanting to connect the older adult community of the city of St. Louis with artists and use the artists as the role model. So I decided to have a show. Called it Maturity and Its Muse.
She has this great kind of love of life and she's so passionate about what she's doing that everybody wants to work with her.
That's the way I like to do things, is if I get an idea and I can find people that go along with it, then I think, okay, let's give this a try. And we had more than 20,000 people that came to see this show.
We don't think a lot in our society about aging and making aging really a successful and vibrant period of life. And that's what she's all about.
From that, I decided maybe I could do some other things. I went to Washington University, to the Kemper, and I talked with them about doing a program for Alzheimer's. And we started a program called CARE, Kemper Art Reaches Everyone. And it's now in its 5th year.
Lynn is involved in a whole collection of activities that are aging related, arts related, and community related. She's involved in the botanical garden, she's involved in the symphony, she's involved in the libraries. It's amazing.
One lady wrote me and said, "Oh, it's such a joy." And her husband is the one that has Alzheimer's. And she had been afraid to go out with him in public. And she discovered by being at the program at the Kemper that she could go places with him, that he loved it as much as she did.
The work that Lynn is doing is, I think, transforming what it is to age in our community.
A lot of the people that I reach out to in the community are marginalized and they're underserved, so they don't necessarily have the opportunities to go see live theater, to go to the History Museum, to go to the Botanical Garden. And when they get to go to places like this for one of the programs that we do, then they wander around afterwards. They see other things that are there. When I see people happy like that, I start to cry. I do, right now. I mean, I think about it. I know that they're immobile in so many ways, but I know that they're having a good time. It's a thrill for me.
Well, I think when you're choosing how to spend your time and energy, it's really important to follow your passion. And for me, it has always been about making connections and really shining a light on the positive things in our community. I've always been very passionate about highlighting our natural resources, whether it's at Great Rivers Greenway or in Forest Park or our magnificent rivers.
Carol understands the importance of connectivity in the sense that the greenways and the parks and our open spaces matter, but they matter more when communities and people are connected together through those outdoor opportunities.
And then we've got human resources. So I've also been involved in things that are educational oriented, like COCA and the Arch grants.
So one of the ways that Carol has helped with education of children is through a program called Neighborhood Houses, and they've helped 1,200 kids with 20,000 hours of after-school programs and opportunities for kids to engage in education in fun ways. When I think about Carol and what makes her so successful as a volunteer or just really as a person, she cares deeply about what happens to people, and it drives her to help people.
I'm a native of Ferguson. I grew up there. I lived there for 26 years. The Saturday after all of the unrest, I went up there and said, I need to do something. I don't know what the something is I need to do, but the community had already responded, and I literally stumbled on it. And there were more than 350 artists out there transforming a landscape covered in wooden boards that really looked like, sort of fear and destruction into instead these remarkable and beautiful works of art. In my background being a journalist, I said, how do I capture this story? And eventually decided the best way to capture it is through a book. And so the result was the book Painting for Peace in Ferguson, which really described all of these artists who just came out. And what was really interesting about that moment, and the reason I wanted to capture it, not just the physical change of the landscape, but there was a transformation of the artists and the neighbors as well.
It was her way of giving back to the kids and connecting their stories in a way that would resonate beyond Ferguson, beyond St. Louis, actually through national media. She's gotten a lot of attention from the New York Times and Huffington Post and many others.
All of the proceeds go to benefit art, education, and youth initiatives, as well as helping some of the small businesses. It was 1,000 paintbrushes that made a huge difference in the community of Ferguson in that one moment. And we all have a paintbrush. We all have something special that we can bring that makes a difference.
I'm never sure that my foresight is very good. We started out with a concrete plan that we want to at least take care of one woman a month. So it has grown in ways that I really didn't anticipate.
When Marlis and I started Gateway to Hope about 10 years ago, we knew that there were a lot of women who had breast cancer and couldn't access health care because of lack of insurance or because they were underinsured.
I've been dealing with breast cancer for a long time, and there have always been women without insurance, and it just kind of reached a point where it was heart-rending enough, and there are enough women who need care that kind of helped push us into saying we really need to do something here.
What we didn't realize at the time was just how many women were in need of our help, and looking back over the last 10 years, we've helped about 1,000 women win their battle with breast cancer.
For those women that don't have insurance or they're underinsured, they get diagnosed with breast cancer and they have to deal with the whole medical piece of what am I going to look like? am I going to survive? How do I go on from here? And then have the financial burden of taking care of their family. How am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to get to my treatments? You know, do I buy my prescription or do I buy groceries? So it can be very desperate times.
Our mission has always been to save lives, but we worry about more than just the medical concerns. Gateway to Hope provides financial support to pay mortgages and rent, provide food, transportation, anything that patients need.
And we have a wonderful staff. Every day they pour their heart and soul into it.
Marlis has devoted so much time and energy to the program, and she's such a great catalyst. Everything that we try to do has been made easier simply because she was involved.
What we did was we recruited a whole host of providers. We had over 200 providers, from physicians who would donate their services to centers where we could do surgery, drug companies. So if you have a lot of people, everybody doing a little bit, you can get a lot done.
Everybody knows that she's an exceptional surgeon and that she has an absolute dedication to the health and the well-being of her patients as well as her friends. But what many people don't know is that she is a true adventurer. And whether she's climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous, or committing her time and effort to trying to save lives through a program like Gateway to Hope, she commits 100%.
My ultimate goal is that we don't need Gateway to Hope anymore.
I think to really understand Marlis's contribution not only to Gateway to Hope, but also to the St. Louis community as a whole, you'd really have to reach out to the thousands of patients that she's helped over the last 30 plus years who would tell you that she is truly one of a kind.
So I'm a mom of a daughter who had an eating disorder. She was diagnosed when she was 15.
Eating disorders are complex mental illnesses that strike men and women of all ages. Average age of onset is 11 to 13.
And eating disorders has the highest mortality rate of any mental illness, with 20% of the people affected actually dying from the illness. You know, and I think oftentimes we think eating disorders are a choice or a diet gone wrong. But they're not. They're a very serious, complex mental illness with really, really serious co-occurring medical conditions. The people who suffer isolate themselves from friends and family, and the family gets isolated because no one knows how to talk about it. No one knows how to say, how's your daughter? How's that anorexia going?
Family members supporting a loved one with an eating disorder show higher stress levels than if they were supporting someone with autism, with cancer.
There were no resources. There was no information readily available. My insurance company could deny our daughter coverage repeatedly. She was in the middle of treatment and then she would be denied coverage, denied treatment the next day, even though she was really, really sick. I just got angry and I thought, you know, something has to be done. We needed to raise awareness. We needed to end all of this silence that was around the disease, and that we also needed good policy to help people who were suffering from the illness. And then I actually reached out to my House representative at the time and talked to her about filing a bill. And so she filed it.
Annie's brainchild has been this Eating Disorders Council that I've had the pleasure of serving on.
We have 22 people who come together from around the state to talk about improving access to treatment. We provide a school program called The Real Skinny to middle school and high school students, and we educate them about the serious nature of eating disorders.
The state allocated resources to put this council together because Annie had made them understand that there were gaps in coverage and gaps in services.
So the second bill we filed was one around insurance reform. In 2017, the law goes into effect, which provides the standards of care guidelines, and the same type of language has been adopted at the national level.
Annie is strategic, so she met with all of these different representatives and senators, and they put forth this bill and got it through. And this is a landmark insurance reform bill. It would not exist without Annie Seal.
It was a long 7 years of advocacy, but I am really proud of our state. My daughter really helped with this whole process, and she would go and speak in front of the Senate hearing committee, or she would speak at Advocacy Day, or she'd be on the radio. And what I noticed was every time she used her voice, I'd see her become stronger. I'd see her feel pride in all that she had accomplished in getting rid of this terrible illness. It takes tremendous courage to come out and talk about this illness. And I saw and met some of the bravest people I've ever met, people who'd lost their kids, would come to Jefferson City and share their stories and talk to legislators about why it matters. And that's what we needed, and that's what happened. And it is what made all the difference.
My husband would always say that I can never just go anywhere. I have to take 20 people with me, and wherever we go, then it's a party. I think that's part of what drives me in some of the organizations, because I enjoy being around everybody that's there.
What you love about Kathy in the board or a committee is that she always comes in with a positive attitude and smiling, and then she might ask you for something, so that's great.
I have two passions, and one is helping people who have special needs, and the other passion is kids. I love the arts and trying to keep arts in our school for our kids. The ARC and Doorways are two organizations I've been involved with that help people with special needs.
Kathy got involved with the St. Louis ARC many years ago and came on a committee. Then she chaired the finance committee. Then she became chairman of the board. She's on the development committee.
The ARC goes from birth to death. They take care of people who, all through their years of growing up, and whether if they're autistic or if they have Down syndrome or just other special needs, and supports their families.
Whatever Kathy gets involved with, she not only brings her passion, but she brings a very smart financial mind with her.
One thing I was very proud of that I was able to participate on was the committee that established the capital campaign. So we were able to buy the building that's up on North Warson, and we raised $5 million.
The ARC had not ever had a permanent home or a center where families could come.
And we've just recently paid off the building, so that's a yay. I'm really proud that I was able to participate in that.
You see in it, everything that Kathy does has inclusion and bringing people together, especially underserved people.
Doorways helps people who might have been exposed to AIDS, and they have programs for women and their children. Stray Dog and Springboard and Circus Floor were the other organizations I got involved in because they bring arts to the kids.
Doorways, Stray Dog Theater, Springboard, the St. Louis ARC, Circus Floor. She brings leadership skills that helps them raise money to do the mission of our organizations.
I'm so humbled that I'm in this group of women, the class I'm in, and I look at their bios and how wonderful they all are. And so for me, it's been a very special moment.
I'm the eldest of 13 children, and I learned early on to kind of get addicted to being helpful and bossy. So as a doctor, you can be helpful and bossy. It's a great fit for me.
She has a certain type of selflessness that she can look at a larger cause and create not only a vision, but then figure out how to get it done.
For me as a pediatrician, it's intrinsically rewarding to see children and young families do better, especially families without very many resources.
She's done lots of things in St. Louis that have to do with children. She's worked with Southside Day Nursery, the Grace Hill Neighborhood Health Center, and in fact, that's kind of how I got to know her as a pediatrician and teaching me what it was like to take care of a child.
When this opportunity to go to Haiti came up, it was just like, it was something I was waiting for. And so I started to go 1 week a year, and then I would go 2 weeks a year, and then I would go 3 weeks a year, and I would go 4 weeks a year to this village clinic. It was not a good place for a doctor to be here watching people die who wouldn't be dying elsewhere. The real reason the kids were sick was that they were malnourished. What we needed to do is we needed to feed them. My colleague at Washington University, Dr. Mark Maneri, was experimenting with a new recipe: peanuts, powdered milk, sugar, oil, vitamins, and minerals, all mixed together. We started making it with a hand grinder in Cap Haitian, and we made enough to cure 10 kids a month, but it was miraculous. I mean, these kids who were just like floppy, looking like death warmed over, just popped right up within a week, and their mothers became elated. This one wasn't gonna die. And then we started fundraising to be able to save the lives of more of the children with this organization called Meds and Food for Kids.
She approached me with the idea that Meds and Foods and Kids needed to build its own factory in Haiti. She felt that if the product could be manufactured in Haiti, not only could we help save the children of Haiti, but we could employ Haitians and we could contribute to the economy of Haiti.
So now, almost 13 years later, we've saved the lives of 190,000 children. We have educated more than 2,500 farmers about how to grow more and better peanuts and raise their income. And we employ 65 Haitians in our factory.
When I see her in Haiti, when she held those little babies, and the care that she gave, and the hope that she creates for those parents who have no other hope, is just so amazing to see.
St. Louis has been very generous to our program in Haiti. It wouldn't exist without the extreme generosity of St. Louis people. It's miraculous, really.